Imagine the scene. After years dreaming of a corner of mine, I finally realize the desire to have a perfect home. Every detail designed, every space planned to be functional and inspiring. And then, like a hurricane, it comes to the family with the disadvantage of those who think the world revolves around it. If you didn't like it, you can leave. My sister released the most naturalness, as if I were the intruder in my own home. But who was favoring her, with husband, 2 children and a mountain of luggage occupying my sacred space? My name is Julia. I am 35 years old and I own an interior design studio. Project complete residential spaces, from scratch to delivery. I have a team that works in an office in the center, but my real cabinet is my house, or it was, until recently. 6 months ago, I finally bought my apartment, 3 bedrooms, ground floor with private terrace, all in the Scandinavian minimalist style I love so much. Clean lines, light shades, no excess. A refuge of peace after years living in tight rentals. My family. Parents over 60 and Varvara, my older sister, married to Anton, with 2 children, one of 8, one of 6. We always had a cordial relationship, but without great intimacy. A week ago, I had an inauguration party of the house. All impeccable, guests, food, compliments to the project. Even my parents and several appeared with the family. They looked enchanted. But today, very early, the phone rang. "Julia, I need your help," came my sister's melodramatic voice. "Our owner started a general reform, changing plumbing, wiring, everything. We need a place to be for a month. You couldn't." My stomach wrapped it on time. The idea of having my invaded sanctuary made me sick. "And the parents?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Impossible. They live in a tiny conjugate, with no room for the 4 of us. In addition, Anton would spend 4 hours a day only on transport." She continued with the rehearsed speech. "You have 3 bedrooms, it's huge. I swear it will only be a month. We'll take only the essentials." I was reluctant, but I ended up giving in. After all, it was my sister. 2 days later, a packed van of boxes stopped in front of my building. I watched through the various window and Anton discharging an absurd amount of things. When they climbed, my room looked like a settlement deposit. "Various, we combined only the necessary," I protested. "It's just that the parents' counter is already full, and the self-storages are very expensive. We get everything right, don't worry." My apartment, before an example of organization, became a battlefield. The children occupied my room, the couple stayed in the guest suite, and I, of course, inherited the office sofa. Chaos began on the first day. The children arrived from school like hurricanes, shouting, running, arguing. Varya, who worked half a time in a clothing store, spent the afternoons in cafes with his friends while I tried to work. "Aunt Julia, play with us, Aunt Julia, I'm hungry." The requests had no end. In the early days, I prepared snacks, cut fruits, served yogurts. Until I got tired. "You are already big, get something alone. There are bread, cheese, ham in the refrigerator." The reaction did not take long. "Why are my children eating dry sandwiches all day?" "Because I'm working, and they don't stop interrupting myself." "But you stay at home all day," she said. "Yes, because this is my office. I have deadlines, online meetings, work visits. I'm not a nanny." The climate soured for good. The fuse came when I had to go to a luxury condominium outside the city for inspection, 4 hours of travel. I warned the night before I would not be at home. The next morning, when she was leaving, she set a scandal. "You can't go. What do I do with the kids?" "Take care of yourself." "They are your children," I said, without pestanaja. But I agreed with Lisa to go to a new coffee. He wimped. "Cancelled. I have to work, and it is this work that pays the 0 rent that you are enjoying here." She exploded, but I slammed the door. When I came back at night, I found my parents in the room, with television in the last volume. Both have hearing problems. The children ran like crazy, the adults shouted to hear themselves, and several loudly on the phone, as if in a bar. "What are you doing here?" I asked, already exhausted. "Your sister called. He said that you abandoned the children," said my mother, without taking her eyes off the screen. "I went to work," I clarified. "Well, so don't worry about dinner. Your mother cooked for everyone." At least that was a relief. A well-tempered rubber, crispy chores, fresh salads. The first decent meal on days. But the nightmare didn't end there. What was a family invaded became a crowd. Every day, after lunch, the apartment turned into an acoustic boxing ring. Children screaming, television thundering, varying chatting non-stop, my parents trying to override their voices to everything else. Working has become an impossible mission. The following Saturday, I had to go to an important project, a complete kitchen and living room renovation in a country house. 2 hours on the road. When I came back at night, the noise was already heard from the street. High music, laughs, unknown voices. Upon entering, I came across a complete party on my terrace, about 15 people, between distant relatives, neighbors, and unknown. My garden furniture was spread, the barbecue area taken, and the refrigerator, which I had crowded the day before, was empty. I was paralyzed for a minute, absorbing the scene. My house, my refuge, had been transformed into a meeting point without even consulting me. I took a deep breath, forced a smile and went out to the terrace. It was no use doing scene in front of strangers. "Julia," shouted my father, shaking a skewer. "Come here, join us." It was the drop of water. "Ah, just a small family gathering, no big deal," my father tried to justify, as if the invasion of my space was a gesture of affection. "You don't care, right? After all, family is family." But I cared. And a lot. I just wasn't going to argue in front of strangers, so I swallowed the anger and smiles with my clenched teeth. "Of course not. It seems that you already found everything you needed." And they really found it. My privacy, my patience, my limits. The party only ended at 10 at night. As the noise echoed the walls, I locked myself in the office, trying to focus on the project I needed to deliver. Impossible. Between laughs, loud music and the smell of burnt barbecue, my productivity was the drain. When the last guests finally came out, my parents started getting things up, or rather they pretended to fix it. "Mother, father, won't you help clean?" My mother, with deep dark circles, sighed as if I had asked her to carry a pyramid. "Oh, Julinha, I'm exhausted. The day was so tiring, we need to leave." And they were. Without looking back. Without a thank you. Without an excuse. Varia and Anton, of course, disappeared in the room with the children, leaving behind a war scene, beer bottles scattered, crumpled disposable glasses, remains of food stuck to the floor of the porch. My house, which was once an order oasis, now looked like a post-festival garbage deposit. I spent the next 2 hours of 4, collecting cigarette butts, cleaning ketchup stains from the table and throwing mountains of plastic dishes. Each movement was a painful reminder, this was not a family encounter. It was an occupation. On Sunday, they appeared again, as if nothing had happened. "We came to spend the day with the children, while Varjazin comes out quickly," announced my mother, crossing the door. "See. Omo, if they were the owner of the place." It was the drop of water. "Actually, we need to talk about yesterday. You can't have parties in my house without warning me." My father frowned, offended. "Ah, for that, Julia. It was just a chat, a rest. You live locked here alone, you need a little joy." "I don't want joy at the expense of my respect," I said firmly. "There will be no more meeting here. Point." My mother waved with her hand, as if I were a Bustain child. "Don't overdo it, daughter. They just wanted to relax. It's my relaxation that matters here, mother. And by the way," I turned to Vary, that I had just emerged from the kitchen with a cup of coffee. "Your month is almost over. When exactly do you leave?" The silence that followed was deafening. Various frozen. Anton suddenly discovered something fascinating on his cell phone. "Well, the point is that we gave up on that apartment," she stammered. "After the renovation, the rent fired. You can't go back." It was like punching the stomach. "And when were you going to tell me?" "Now I'm counting," she shrugged, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Look, if we spend a few more months, no problem, right? Until we get somewhere else." My parents shook their heads in approval, such as ventriloquist dolls. A month. You promised a month. The plans change, Julia. Life is like this. Very's voice was sweet, almost condescending, as if I were irrational because they demanded them to meet the agreed. I didn't answer. I turned my back, entered the office and called Mark, my contact in the real estate market. I need 2-bedroom apartment options, urgently. In the same region as my sister rented before. No problem, Julia. In 10 minutes I send you a list. When I returned to the living room, everyone stared at me with question. What are you doing? Various crossed his arms, tense. Arrange a place for you. The cell phone whistled. It was Mark, with over 20 options on WhatsApp. I referred to Various. There they are. Start calling. Did you lose your head? We are family. Family does not lie on deadlines. Family does not turn my house into a bar without asking. Family does not let me play nanny while you walk around. My parents exchanged disconcerted looks. My dad throats, visibly uncomfortable. Maybe we should leave today, let them solve it alone. They left. Vary and Anton locked in the room for the rest of the day. Through the wall, I heard muffled discussions, sharp words. A week later, they reached the math. What was $3,500 of light became $9,000. The water, which cost $700, jumped to $3,200. The gas tripled. What about supermarket expenses? My usual $15,000 a month had become $60,000, not to mention what they spent on family barbecues. That night, during dinner, I made it clear, I analyzed the bills. If they don't leave next month, the rules change, $45,000 per month, more half of all home and market purchases. Vary almost choked. 40-5,000? Did you go crazy? Anton crossed his arms. We will not pay rent for a parenting. Great, I said, without blinking. So you have exactly 2 weeks to get somewhere else. After that, I changed the locks. They came out knocking on the door. The next day, my parents appeared in attack mode. How dare you put your own sister on the street? My mother was on the edge of tears. She's not on the street. There are options. Just don't want to use them. You're being cruel. I'm being fair. This is my house, and I decide who stays here. That's not how we created you. You created me to know how to defend what is mine. And that's exactly what I'm doing. They were offended, clearly waiting for me to give in. The next days were of tasty silence. Vary and Anton ignored me. The children, silent. Me. Parents, disappeared. For the first time in weeks, the house was at peace. Until I had to travel for 3 days to supervise a commercial project in Moscow. When I came back, on Thursday night, the noise of the party could already be heard from the parking lot. I opened the door and came across a crowd of strangers in my room. 20 people, at the very least, drinking, dancing, destroying my space. What's going on here? Everyone out. Various, drunk, staggered toward me with a stupid smile. Ah, relax, Julia. Don't be boring. This is my house. I want everyone out. A big man, whom I had never seen in my life, turned to me with a glass in my hand. Now this house is ours, hot. Go away. The audience laughed, encouraging him. Could have called the police. Could have made a scandal. But with a drunk mob, the last thing I wanted was a fight. I took my bag and left. I spent the night in a hotel. When I came back in the morning, the house was empty but devastated. Broken bottles, food scattered through the furniture, the center table burned by cigarette butts. I spent the morning methodically packing everything that belonged to them, accurately folded clothes, toys of organized children, all tidy as I would make for a customer. At noon, I heard the key in the lock. Vary staggered with the children behind. When she saw her bags and boxes aligned by the door, her eyes widened. Julia, what are you doing? You can't expel us. We have nowhere to go. They should have thought of it before turning my house into an antro and kicking me from her. Please forgive us. It won't happen again. It doesn't go. Because you won't be here. The children looked at me, confused, their eyes full of tears. It hurts me to this day, but it wasn't their fault. Various kept crying, begging. It was no use. An hour later, my parents called. They started screaming even before I attended. How dare you do this to your own sister? I hung up. They called 5 more times. I didn't answer. It was the quietest week I had in months. The following Wednesday, I had to travel again to oversee the installation of an Italian floor in an VIP project. I came back late, around 10 in the night. The house was empty. The chests, the bags, the children's toys, everything was gone. I walked from one room to another, almost not believing. The room had been a living room again. The bedroom, room. My office was no longer a deposit of alien junk. For the first time in a long time, my house was mine again. I knew how to say no when it was necessary. He knew how to protect what he built with so much effort. And above all, he knew how to rebuild what they almost destroyed, our family. His eyes shone with a mixture of pride and late regret. I smile, lightly touching your arm. Thank you, Father. That means a lot. He nodded, as if he wanted to say more, but the words were lost between the noise of the cups and the laughter of the guests. That night, while dancing with Kirol under the golden lights that were reflected in the water, I felt that for the first time in years, everything was exactly where it should be. My life, my work, my love, none of this was built at the expense of my dignity. And that was the greatest victory. 2 months later, an unexpected message arrived on my cell phone. It was of an unknown number, but the text left no doubt. I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no anger, no relief, not even curiosity. Just a strange void, as if that message belonged to another life, the other version of me, to which it still believed that family was synonymous with boundless obligation. Kirol, realizing my expression, approached. Who is it? I showed him the screen. He read, then raised his eyes to mine, waiting. You should not NAD. A to her, said softly. But if you want to talk, I'm here. I took a deep breath. I typed a short, blunt answer. If you go to blame me again, don't waste your time. If you go to assume what you did, I'm open. But only when you're ready to hear the truth, all of it. I sent. I blocked the number. And for the first time, I felt no weight in doing so. Because some doors, once closed, no longer need to be open. Some lessons have already been learned. And some people only understand the value of what they lost when it's too late. My life now was about choices, not about rescues. About peace, not about wars of others. About building, not about fixing what others broke out by negligence. And while the sun was on the sea in Sochi, where Kirol and I passed our first weekend as a husband and wife, I knew I had made the right choice. Always. I built a good life. A life that finally belongs to me. Thank you, Father. And sorry for taking so long to understand. Varia always knew how to manipulate who was around her. You just tried to help your daughter. We spoil it. There is an abyssal difference between the two. He was right. 4 years, they took her out of every mess she created herself, never letting her face the consequences. When, for the first time, life demanded that it solve its own problems, it collapsed. Not because I couldn't, but because it never learned. 2 years after the beginning of this nightmare, here I am, sitting in my beautiful and serene house, alongside the man I chose to share life, managing a prosperous business and cultivating relationships with those who truly respect me. The phone vibrates. My mother's message on WhatsApp: Varia was expelled from her friend's house. Asks if you can come here again. What did you answer? I answered what should have been said a long time ago: no. We are too old for this kind of chaos. I left the phone aside and looked around the room. All in place. Clean. Organized. Silent. Just as it should be. Some still wrinkle their nose when they hear about cutting ties with their family. But I learned something crucial: you can't save those who don't want to be saved. And you can't keep ties with those who only see you a well-left well to be explored. Varia made her choices. I made mine. I chose to protect my peace, my home, my financial stability. And since then I haven't had a single regret. Because family is not just blood. Family are the people you choose, those who respect your limits, celebrate your victories, and do not see in you a plan B for your own flaws. I am the living proof that it is possible to be happy and accomplished without letting the mistakes of others drag you to the background, even if these other people carry your last name. And no, I won't apologize for that.